Hello everybody, this is Axter speaking and I am a newly added member of the Players Council. For those who don't know, Players Council is a group of people who try to contribute to Lord of the Rings trading card game in 2024. In today's video I would like to share my analysis of the top 8 Lord of the Rings trading card game World Championship, which was played on GAMP. This is the website that I'm currently looking at. I would like to ask everybody to bring their friends and share the knowledge, share the word about this wonderful game, because it is far from dead in 2024. So let's get straight to the business. I will start by looking at the deck lists of all the top 8 contenders, both from Movie PC as well as Fellowship of the Ring PC formats. Then I will look at my replays of the top 8. Then I will take a look at the matches between the World Champion and the World Challenger. And at the end of the video I would like to speak a little bit about the future of these formats, and also try to share a couple tips perhaps, and that's about it. So let's get started. I'm using my alternative account on which I will try to look at the individual deck lists. We are currently looking at Basmelis's movie build, which of course included Estelle. That is the main card the whole deck was built around, and Shadow, Moria, we could call it Swarm because it consists of all the typical minions such as Runner and Scout, and of course Goblin Armory. The overall goal of this deck is to run with the Free Peoples, draw massive amounts of cards through Goblin Patrol Troop and Scimitar, and try to stop the opponent while on our way to the 9th site. Moving on to the next one. Are Branko's Estelle as well with his Archer build. I should say that I haven't looked at the individual deck lists of the other contenders yet, so I will try to share what comes to my mind when I take a look at these builds. Both of these two players that I've just gone through are using the Fellowship sites. That is the thing which is quite unique to the PC movie format this year, that you can choose to use either the Fellowship or Towers or King's Path, depending on what suits your strategy, your Free Peoples, your Shadow, or the overall feeling. His build was of course different to that of Basmelis. The main difference is the amount of cards, and also that his Shadow is not relying on Swarm, but rather on putting a lot of wounds on the opponent's Fellowship. Now moving on to number 3, that was my build. Might look quite messy at first sight, but it is all built around this card, which is lost to the goblins. I chose this strategy because when I looked at the deck lists of the contenders from group stage who placed at the top positions, I thought that it might be a good idea to try to use this combo now that PC have added this card to the pool, which allows you to put a card to the bottom of the deck. For those who don't know, this deck is built around placing 12, ideally 12 cards on the bottom of your deck. Those cards should be Shadow cards. It could be, for example, Tentacles or Gollum, or this condition right here. You do that by Gimli, who places a card at the bottom of the deck, and then you try to remove Twilight and Fellowship so that you can spam it a couple times. Doing that, you are able to put, let's say, 12 cards to the bottom of the deck, perhaps on side 4 or 3 depending on the draw, and then you corrupt the ring bearer, exerting Golem to exert the opponent's ring bearer, which triggers this card right here. Alright, moving on. Now, my friend from the Czech community, Busy, was playing Saved Condor with Moria Swarm. As you can see, this shadow is pretty popular because just like Basmelis, he used this as his choice of shadow for the movie PC. The Freebie Boss is built around this card, which places a companion in the dead pile and allows you to take 3 cards of that companion's culture to your hand. This is a massive power spike, because typically the shadow doesn't have many ways how to punish it on side 2, so if you draw it early enough, you get away with murder, basically. And then the rest of the game you just play Gandalf's tricks, which keep you safe, and you try to run with your shadow. An interesting fact, due to Elendil, it is quite safe to say that if Busy had run into Hillman, I'm not sure he did, he would have absolutely zero problem with them, because he can just easily eliminate their side control mechanic. This was a very viable option for the top 8 in my opinion, therefore I think picking Hillman would have been a pretty bad call, so I believe we didn't see even one example of them, even though somebody, perhaps Arbranco, had played them in the group stage before that. Alright, moving on. Big N19. Again, you can see Estelle. That should probably send out a clear message that the card is pretty good. And Shadow, that reminds me of Basmelis' build, but you can see that there is a slight variation. I believe the amount of cards is not the same to that of Basmelis, but it looks pretty similar. Of course, there are all of the key pieces, like all the events of Elven culture which do the tricks. Perhaps I should say why the deck is so good and why so many people decided to pick him up. The reason is that Aragorn can easily defeat practically any minion except perhaps for Sauron, because he can just recycle all the events in his hand by his ability, pump himself up until the regroup phase, +2, +2, +2, etc. and use the normally useless events to make himself a beast. That's pretty much it. An interesting thing is that you can see Gandalf here, the leader of men, so the starting fellowship must have been something like Gandalf plus Arwen, bidding a lot, or perhaps Gandalf and Greenleaf, then starting on the Prancing Pony, and playing Estelle, which triggers and picks up an elf costing 2, and of course a part of the starting fellowship is also Galadriel, later redeemed. So yeah, the deck is pretty universal. Now, the Faker, the last year's challenger, chose to pick up Rohan with Morgul Swarm as his deck. This deck got some interesting buffs as well as nerfs. In group stage I was playing this Shadow and I thought it was pretty good, because this edition, the Ringwraith in Twilight, perhaps balanced for the fact that Destroyer got nerfed. There's also Harry Goatleaf, which is practically a swarm minion, because not only does he reduce the Twilight cost of Nazgul, but he also assigns himself. To give you an idea of a situation why that is relevant, if you have 5 companions on board, one is Frodo, he cannot be assigned to Frodo if you decide to use his ability, so he gets assigned to, say, Gandalf. Then you have, for example, 5 other minions, then anything stronger than Harry Goatleaf is going to be assigned to the companions in the swarm, because he will already be assigned, so that's why he's so powerful. A really important 1-drop in this deck. And the Rohan, of course, works in a similar way like the Ents Basmalis had won the World Championship in 2023 with, because you burn a companion in Fellowship phase by using Saved from the Fire, which we had seen in the Save Gondor of Vizi. Then you pick up 3 copies of Simple Mind, typically. You take Eomer, Theoden and Eowyn from the deck, you play them all. Then if your opponent plays, for example, Sauron, you just suicide Theoden, you take Rohirrim army from your deck, which has an Eratum now. You can play it just by spotting 2 companions instead of 3, which is the original design. And then you can do that once again. The reason why this Saved from the Fire is so popular is that you lower the amount of free people's cards in the deck. That's how your shadow can shine. The shadow, like Morgul Swarm especially, can use this to their advantage. And also you get to pick all the cards you need against your opponent's current strategy. Now number 7. We have Pockets right here, and as it seems, it is pretty much the same deck with some slight variations. Faker chose that Eomer's Spear was more important. Pockets discarded it. Yeah, so that's the one card that differs. Or also the Faker decided that somebody might pick up Hillman, so that's why he used Feldit's Awake. Yes, but otherwise pretty much the same thing. I'm not going to repeat myself then. And the last contender of movie was Sam Paul, and he chose his Rainbow Free Peoples, and in combination with Morgul Swarm with some variations. There is Gorbak, which is an interesting minion, doesn't see much play, but when you manage to put him on board and boost up all of the Morgul orcs, then he might do a couple tricks perhaps. Now, as for the choices of the individual players and what they had picked, so Basmalis of course knew what he was doing by picking Estelle. The card was insanely powerful, and the Shadow to draw and to stop the opponent, potentially kill them if the opportunity had come. Our Branko and his Shadow, I don't think that it is particularly good against Estelle, which was meta, but he managed to beat Basmalis in the first round. We are going to take a look at it later. Now, my build was purely, well, let's say it was an estimated guess. I thought that Basmalis would discard File, which boosts the Ring Bearer's resistance by 2. That was a good call eventually, but I lost my movie game against Basmalis anyway. So I'm pretty satisfied with my choice. It's just that perhaps the fact that we were playing the Czech championships on the same day as the World Championship was, so things might have turned out differently, who knows. Now Vizi, of course, the very strong Gondor with Moria. Maybe I should say that I don't particularly like this combination. You are pretty much expected to use They Are Coming, maybe even we could say spam it to boost your Shadow, which the Free Peoples normally doesn't like. There are not many cards to discard, because discarding a Sublink or some other artifact or Gandalf's event might cost you dearly in the long run, but with this amount of cards, 48, it is doable, definitely. It looks like it is a pretty strong counter build against what Basmalis had. Then for Big N19, similar situation like with Basmalis. Faker, pretty solid choice, as I said, works the same way like Ents in 2023. Now Pocket's pretty much the same thing, and Sam Paul, it looks like he remained true to his deck from the group stage, I believe. Now I think this was a pretty poor choice, because if you take a look at Basmelis, he evidently knew who he was going to be playing against, and since St. Paul has more than 3 cultures, Basmelis was very well prepared for him. I'm not sure if that was relevant in their game, but I would bet that it played some role in their game, and that's why St. Paul lost. Alright, continuing on, the Fellowship decks. Now, this is a deck of Basmelis. Interestingly, he chose to use Nazgûl as a stop shadow instead of Moria. Perhaps it is the fact that he was expecting people to play a large amount of power according to his stature in the finals, so that must have been the reason why he decided to take this shadow. Now Branko, he remained loyal to Estelle. As you can see, the card is pretty universal, could be played in Fellowship, could be played in movie, and it does the trick in all of the formats. Moria, the classic shadow, of course, I have nothing against. I decided to go with Corruption. The Free Peoples is just for support. The Gimli here has nothing to do with Lost to the Goblins this time. It is there just as an extra way how to filter cards from your hand, because you get to put the first card in Fellowship phase to the bottom of your deck. And then of course Tidings of Erebor. I would say this is a massively underrated card, because drawing 3 cards in regroup, the shadow players typically use all their pool, because not using it means you are stacking card in your hands, and that is not good for your Free Peoples. So it's pretty much always draw 3 cards in regroup. Busy, another build of Estelle, and with Moria Swarm, and I would say it's pretty much universal, even though it includes a lot of cards. It has answer to Corruption with Sam. It has answer to Uruks in terms of lots of wounding, and of course Estelle's ability. It has answer to Moria with Secret Sentinels, and an answer to Nazgûl with Release the Angry Thought. So very good build, very solid. Then the next one is Big Anna 19. So interesting choice to start with the dwarves. So this is against Moria, this is extra against Moria, and not much against Nazgûl, but the very strong dwarves with Flurry of Blows can be the first to be, what's the word, reckoned with, something like that. Alright, the Faker. So a very consistent and universal build, of course. Sleep Karadas and powered according to his stature, and 3 copies of Flaming Brand against Nazgûl. As you can see, what all of the Fellowships have in common, or the Free Peoples I should say, is that you cannot find many weak spots in them. Perhaps in my Free Peoples it looks pretty useless if your goal is to run for the 9th side, but again, that's not the point of the deck. You are meant to corrupt your opponent with the shadow. That's why you draw extra cards. But that's maybe one of the things that we would like to change in Fellowship, that people are more afraid of what the shadow might come up with, and not just a marathon of who reaches the 9th side first and trying to stop the opponent. Now Pockets is the 7th contender of the Fellowship block, a PC. So this is a hate ghoul build, my personal favorite. You are able to kill Gandalf, you are able to put there lots of wounds with your Nazgûl. That's pretty much inevitable in most of scenarios. And then when your opponent makes the double move, you are there with 1 or 2 pieces of hate combined with these guys right here to kill a key companion. Can work pretty well depending on the draw, but it's a very solid build. And of course you have the 9th side to potentially boost your opponent's double move from 7 to 9. I mean to boost the punishment for the double move. And the Free Peoples is a classic alliance with some protection against Swarm, something against Uruks, and in general lots of healing and copies of Aragorn to keep you alive. The last one is St. Paul and his Uruks build. Interesting that Uruks weren't so popular in the top 8. I would say that was pretty much due to the fact that Fall Creation was still existent, and Estelle was pretty much inevitably going to be playing it in the top 8, so that's why they didn't see much play in the top 8, but still they are pretty much always a very solid pick. And the Free Peoples is a rainbow. Here it doesn't matter because Grima doesn't exist in Fellowship block, nor PC, nor the Decipher one, and the rest, lots of possessions and cool events as tricks against opponents. Alright, I'm not going to comment on the choices of the contenders because I pretty much covered it in the process. Now I'm going to go through my replays and then the replays of Basmelis and of the challenger. Alright, so moving on to movie game number 1. I'll go through it pretty fast and stop where I think the game is interesting. So here you can see my Free Peoples and Shadow in action. So the point is, of course, to get rid of cards as soon as possible, put those cards on the bottom of the deck and try to corrupt my opponent. The reason why I put their Loss to the Goblins is that it would otherwise decrease my hand size. That's why I want to draw it later throughout the game. And of course I'm going to draw a lot of cards, put a lot of cards to the bottom, and there is not much happening. It's not that interesting. Of course I wanted to get rid of my opponent's condition eventually. I didn't feel the pressure. Well, my opponent is now sitting there with 8 resistance, 10 resistance in total if we don't count the burdens which he's able to remove. So here my Fellowship is working again to support the Shadow strategy. I stack all the tentacles on the condition whenever possible because I need to spot 3 minions if I want to carry out my combo. And what is happening to the Free Peoples is very irrelevant. As you can see, I kept 12 cards in my deck, and now it's happening. Inevitably, my opponent is going to get corrupted. And that's about it. Moving on to the next game. Round number 2 against Basmelis. Now, when I saw his deck, I was a little bit worried that he had kept the file in the deck, which would mean that I wouldn't be able to corrupt him with my deck no matter what I would do. But if I'm not wrong, he didn't include that in his build, which was my prediction. Of course I didn't know that in our game, but that was something cool to realize after the game. Alright, so he does his thing. That is not relevant to me. He's trying to discard my condition. I try to prevent that. He's on the run. So my Free Peoples is trying to put cards to the bottom. I pay attention how many times I do that. 1, 2, 3. Now I cannot do it anymore because I would be putting either Loss to the Goblins, which I don't want to have in the random 12 cards at the bottom. An unlucky thing is that I have so many copies of Loss to the Goblins in my hand, which limits me from drawing through my deck effectively. Alright. Keeping my 3 minions on the condition, there is no way how he can discard my Tentacles condition. Alright. He played Grima, but I have only 3 cultures. That's what I had thought about in my game, and here I think I decided to do it, but oh, not yet. now the important thing that's going to happen, I need to say what was the cause of my undoing. I believe I should have here used Gimli one more time to put this to the bottom of the deck. I'm going to explain in a second, because what's going to happen now? I have 16 cards in my deck. Perhaps I could have I could have put like 8 or 9 or 10 cards to the bottom of the deck, which would normally suffice, given that my opponent's resistance is 10. Anyway, it wasn't 12, I'm pretty much sure about that. But the point is, I need to draw to the 12 cards of my deck. That would mean that discarding this, I draw 3. The remaining cards in my deck are going to be 13. I need to check what actually remains in my deck, counting all of the copies of my Free People's cards, of the shadow cards, what is stuck on the tentacle condition, and what is in my hand and on the board. Then I can deduce pretty easily what is remaining in the deck. And I believe the mistake which I made was that I didn't play the 4th tentacle. Alright, so take a look at this. Now I'm going to slow it down. Alright, 12 cards in the deck. Now, if there was the 4th tentacle, because now I revealed how many? That's a Free People's card, shadow card. Okay, so that's 1 burden. And 3, and 3, and that's all. Alright, my bad. So, I probably couldn't have changed that. It was just the fact that I drew Lost to the Goblins too early. We'll draw, but with a little bit different draw, my opponent wouldn't be able to do much about my shadow strategy. So I'm pretty much satisfied with how it went. Don't get confused by round 3, that was with my next opponent, Big N19, but there was a problem with the format. We weren't supposed to be playing movie after our loss, so we had to cancel the game and we went to Fellowship. Alright, against Big N19. So my prediction was that everybody was going to play Estelle, Bit and go first and just not care too much about anything, run like there's no tomorrow. So I hit my opponent's Free People's pretty much perfectly with that prediction. I mulliganed to Hate to kill Sam, which happened. That was lucky for me. Now my Free People's is going to cycle through cards, and I'm going to try to draw as many burden adding cards as possible, because my opponent currently in his deck could have Narya, which is a very slow burden removal, and the game favors me. As you can see, my opponent kept his Ring Bearer exhausted, either by knowing what I was playing in movie, so deducing that I could be playing the same thing in Fellowship, or by simply being a veteran and knowing that his Gimli combines with Lost to the Goblins, so that's why he decided to look like that. Alright, another burden from the side. Now, a pity that I hadn't drawn any of the Balrog events, but doesn't matter. Now, the Free People's doesn't care too much about what my opponent plays. If he kills Gimli, too bad, but not that relevant. Alright, now he moves again, and I play this, and I believe on the next side I am going to corrupt him, because I have these 3 events, so now I just need to draw. I played that because it was useless anyway. Alright, and now lots of minions. It would be very difficult for him to kill everything, and burden, there could be one more. And that's it for the Fellowship game, the first one that I played in the top 8. Alright, so same situation. I mulligan to Hate, that happens, I'm lucky. I kill Sam, and from that point I just spend burdens Alright, there's the first one. Now I play Gandalf, I try to draw a lot of cards. After the video, if there are any questions about the builds or about the things which happened during my game, feel free to comment. I would be very happy to answer any of your questions. So again, irrelevant what companions my opponent plays, because my goal is to corrupt him, that's all. Now he moves again, hoping that I don't have any way to punish him. Burden, burden, burden. One more time. So you could say that I got lucky repeatedly, but it is not entirely true, because the Free Peoples, the only thing that it does is that it draws cards extremely fast. Alright, there's the Narya, my enemy. Okay. I play all those things to cycle through my deck. Now the good thing here would be to kill Gimli, because Gimli has Tidings of Erebor, but of course you don't know what your opponent is playing, so we cannot blame Beezy for playing it like that. Alright. And I believe, if I remember correctly, there was a blunder from him. Not that he would be able to change much about it anyway, but yeah, he could have defeated this minion, and that way he would have put 2 wounds on him, but because he didn't realize that he makes the opposing character -1 strength for each card it is bearing, they were equal in strength, and therefore I have 3 vitality in regroup and corrupt him on this side. But it would have probably happened inevitably anyway. I would have drawn this, I would have put 1 card on the bottom of my deck using Gimli, I would have drawn 1 extra card with Gandalf, so it is pretty much inevitable that I would draw the second it wants to be found. So even with Narya activation, I would have corrupted him on side 8. Alright, moving on to my last game. That is against Basmelis. And the biggest surprise for me there was that he didn't bid too much. Not sure why he didn't do that, because if I had bid 2, I would have gone first, and not having Prancing Pony as my starting side, my opponent would have to start with Estelle, which would be pretty bad for him. Alright, lots of burdens. Right, he decided to run. 1 more burden. Okay. I believe Basmelis made a blunder on side 5. Okay, he killed something, pretty cool. Nice, now some wounds, alright. And now he saw my hand, and even so, he decided to exhaust Sam. That's pretty interesting. But the problem is that he still has 7 resistance, and of course Galadriel, in my opinion, the most irritating card in Fellowship, will make sure that those allies stay where they are. So it's very hard for me to do anything about his Free Peoples. Alright, the burdens don't happen, nice. Now the Free Peoples gets a terrible beating, not too relevant, but the problem is I'm not able to corrupt him no matter what I do, and that's game. Yup. So the reason why this failed is that I didn't bid 2. I could have done that. If I had, I would have been on 3 burdens and run against Nazgûl, which in my opinion have a hard time killing off any Free Peoples. You need a very brutal draw and Black Breath and Blade Tip in order to kill your opponent, if you don't play Hate in your deck, because you can just pump a Hobbit which loses a skirmish against a Nazgul and kill Boromir in the fierce skirmish. Then you can play another companion, for example Arwen, that takes one Nazgul as well before she dies. So lots of ways to delay your death, and Nazgul tend to have this one side per game where they don't do anything, and if you sniff it out then you can survive even a crazy double move against them. Very unlucky. So my opponent was able to survive my all-in shadow strategy here, and that's why he was victorious. Well played. So that was the last one for me. Now I go to Basmelis. So we saw his game of Fellowship, so I'm going to close this. Now we move to him and see the finals against Arbranco. I was very surprised that he lost against Arbranco, because with all the elven conditions that prevent archery, it would be very difficult to lose against archery strategy. Okay, so Arbranco went first. Interesting. I'm a bit surprised now. I thought he was... Oh, okay, my bad. Basmelis is the one at the bottom. Now it all makes sense. So there go the archer minions. Sorry about that. Okay. So a couple wounds, nothing too serious. Yeah, he plays it safe. Okay, Legolas dies. That's very bad, because now Frodo is basically unprotected. Rumil versus 2 goblin armories. It's not going to save him. My guess is he's going to die. Oh, of course. Nice. Not bad. Avoiding the 6 companions at all costs. Alright, and there goes the swarm, with Cave Show perhaps, but that is unnecessary. I believe he can just swarm Frodo on this side. Yes, extra cards from the patrol troop. Yes, there he got lucky with the draws, and there's one more, and goblin swarms. And there is the goblin armory, so he's dead. Finals, round 2. Interestingly enough, Arbranco chose to play movie again on these Fellowship sides. But what else could he do? I would say that him defeating Basmelis in the Fellowship side, in the upper bracket movie was more of an anomaly than it would be a calculated, well-built play. Of course, not criticizing him for doing something particularly wrong. It's just that Basmelis had a very strong build, and archery would probably lose against him 9 out of 10 times. And there you see the condition. Alright, he discussed the condition, well played. Now Frodo can take a lot. Now he reduces the amount of companions to 5, and Sam can spam his ability against all of the arrows. So Branko can do whatever he wants, but he's not going to kill his opponent. Probably not even after a double move. Huh, what just happened? Was Greenleaf assigned to a skirmish against Greenleaf? Oh, I mean, was Balrog assigned to a skirmish against him? Gets killed. The Balrog. I might be wrong, but there isn't a way to make him 7 strength until regroup. Well, anyway, I'm going to check it after the game. he stopped. He didn't decide to move again. Interesting. Is he confident he's going to kill Basmaris? There's Balrog. Okay. Alright. That's a good side against this deck because Estelle is not a ranger. And the rest of the deck isn't ranger either, if I'm not wrong. There's just so much vitality in the deck. Oh, that's a lot of armories. Huh. Now he can just spam the healing, of course, and this and this. Alright, lots of arrows, but he's not going to make it. Alright. And now there's no way how he can move 3 times. So Basmaris is just spamming everything he doesn't need. Alright, now he uses the relics to draw even more cards. Yes, the Shadow just supports the 3 peoples. I can't complain about that. I mean, I sacrificed my 3 peoples in order to boost my Shadow. So that's a similar thing. Now this is interesting, I'm going to stop it here. The idea was that he would just try to kill Sam, either in skirmish or by the golem wound and regroup, but there's just too much vitality. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Even if he plays some magic trick, well, that's not going to do the trick, even with this condition on board, so that's why it's not going to work out. And here he even kills this guy, and Gil-galad seals the deal. Okay, greatly played. Now, that's all from the replays. I need to apologize because this was my first time doing an analysis of the top 8, and I need to think about it, how I'm going to make it. Now, I'm very curious about your opinions. Of course, the video should probably be made shorter. That's something I can work on, but on behalf of the Players Council, I would like to know if you are interested in more analysis like this, more detailed analysis of one game, or perhaps some tricks how to play the game at the fundamental level, some individual strategies. Maybe I could go more into detail with my Loss to the Goblins, or if there's anything you are interested in that the video could be about, I'd be more than happy to create more content for the Players Council, and hopefully that will benefit us all by bringing more people together to play this wonderful game. There are a couple more things that I'd like to say. The first one is that many people play this game online each day, each month, and there's always somebody to play against. You can see Fellowship Block and perhaps Movie Block, some of the most popular formats played on GAMP, but you can also play the PC versions of those and feel like the top 8 contenders themselves and try their decks. Of course, there are going to be some errata released, so you need to follow what changes the Players Council brings, but you can experiment. And this is a shout out to everybody out there who still hasn't done so. Please try to bring more people into the community. It is our interest to always look for new faces out here on GAMP and try to help everybody out, try to play together, and hopefully create an even more competitive environment than it is now, because of course we are looking for as many players to compete in these PC events as possible. Alright, so that's about it. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'd like to make one video each Sunday periodically, so I'm interested in your feedback.